Hey y'all, welcome back to Harmon Homestead. Guys, I am down in my raised bed today, and look at all this. Where is the dirt? Where's the soil? Well, it's up under here. And this, what we're looking at, is soil, okay? Welcome back to the channel, guys. I've got a little dry erase board here, so let's talk about controversial composting 101. So when I first got into gardening, okay, you're going to see all the bells and the whistles, and you're going to want to have a compost bin and a tumbler and a kitchen container and all this other stuff. Usually around Black Friday, that's why I'm doing this video. Guys, all these places online will put all these products on sale, especially for the gardeners, because garden season's mostly over with for most of us. So I got in that trap, and I wanted this and I wanted that. I wanted my husband to build me a compost bin. I still don't have that. I wanted to use a busted up old trash can as a compost bin. I tried that. Well, guess what? I didn't get out here and turn it. I didn't maintain it. I didn't water it. I didn't do X, Y, and Z what I was supposed to. The only method of composting that I have found that has worked for me is this right here. In the bed, okay? In the garden spot. So this is leaf time, peak leaf time right now here in the south. Leaves are falling everywhere, and you're getting these good leaves. Now, composting can be broken down into two components. You have brown and green. These two things make up how you compost, okay? You'll hear browns and greens. Brown is carbon, okay? Green is nitrogen. Plants love nitrogen, okay? That's in fertilizer. This right here, the brown, is carbon. It's matter, okay? That's kind of what your worms are liking over here, all right? Now, you'll get online and you'll see that you need to do ratios. There'll be a 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 50-50. Just about every website I have ever been on gives a different ratio on how you need to do this. So what has worked for us? I've understood what is green and brown, what we use the most. And I'm going to show you what are the most common things with green and brown. So for green, what are your most common things that you're going to use on a homestead? Right here. Now there's plenty more things that are considered green and high nitrogen or hot, okay? These are the two things that we use the most. Food scraps and manure. We have chickens. Here in Alabama, the thing is, you want cow manure, okay? And it's good. It's very good. However, we have chickens, and we have them here. We have their excretion free, and that is hot, okay? It's green. It's full of nitrogen, ammonia, okay? You want that. You want that in your compost, whether you're using a tumbler, in the bed, whatever you're doing with this, okay? In the raised bed, you want green items. Next, you want brown. Brown. The most common things that we have: shredded paper and leaves, cardboard, okay? Those three things are what you're going to see usually the most for composting. So guys, to get this going, you need to add it. As far as a ratio, I like a good bit of green in mine, but I don't have near as much green or animal manure and food scraps as I do leaves and paper. This whole bed here was built on rotted logs, which would be brown, okay? Just logs, put them on the bottom, wet them, they're good to go. Leaves, leaf mold, paper, and then come down here and throw some food scraps in it if I have it. Usually most of those go to the chickens, but I will throw animal manure in here when I clean out my chicken coops. You don't want to do that right before planting. It will burn your plants up. But I will say, I cleaned out my chicken coops, and 2 days before I had scattered turnip green seed and kale in this bed. I knew it was too late. I just did this as an experiment. I put the manure right on top of it. If I could rake back the leaves, I'd show you there's green sprouts everywhere. The stuff still germinated in pure chicken manure on top, okay? So I wouldn't recommend it, but a lot of this that we hear we can't do and we're told really isn't the case. So that's why this is controversial, okay? That's what I'm going to get into with this. Guys, I have tried to compost. I've kept, it's my number one thing, old Folgers coffee can inside my house. I'll put eggshells in it. A lot of times I just give them straight back to the chickens when I use these. Sometimes I'll toss it down here. It's hard with all the scraps that we have or go through, or all the things that I can compost, because pretty much everything here is organic, okay, and natural. It's hard to fit it in a coffee can and do this 2-3 times a day, dumping it outside, every little shred of paper, whatever, okay? It's hard. So that kind of went to the wayside, all right? Guys, I'm going to tell you what we've done. It's worked for us. A lot of people say don't do it. Just take it for what it's worth. It might work for you. In the fall, I like to put leaves directly on my bed. A lot of people say it's fine. A lot of people say don't do this. Reason being, it can bring bugs into your garden. They say it may not break down as fast. Guys, after 2 weeks and some rain, you won't even hardly know these are here. And I'm going to tell you something else too. I let my chickens get in here and tear this up. They shred it up for me. The main reason that I put it on my bed, on my raised bed, is when this stuff breaks down and it gets so fine and dried out. These leaves have to dry. Right now they're not dry. I just got them up yesterday. A few are, but they start breaking down. You can't get all this raked up. Okay, you need to rake it up as a whole leaf. That's the best way to get the most matter into your bed. You can put all this in a compost pile, but it takes a while to break down. It's almost like it does better here because there's soil up under it. If you're starting a compost pile, it's going to take a while. If you've already got one established, it's going to go quicker, but you have to turn it, make sure it gets water and all of that. Well, I just let it do right here. I let the chickens work this bed. Now, if I didn't have chickens, I'd come out here, I'd rake it a couple times a week, turn it over. It'll break down quick, guys. This paper, you won't even know it's here in a week, okay? And when I say add paper, I mean I have added every shred of paper with no kind of toxic ink, nothing like that, for, I mean, just gallons and gallons of bags of paper. Paper. I want to make sure I have more brown than I do green. That's all. It doesn't have to be some scientific perfect ratio, okay? Let nature do its thing. Why did I get into composting? Well, because they tell you that you'll have the best plants ever. And really, this is boosting minerals and nutrients for your plants, okay? So I thought, well, that's great. But the main reason is, when I built this bed last year, me and my husband, I said, well, it's me, and I don't want to have to fill in all this with potting mix. I wanted a no-till bed. My bed right here beside me is all topsoil, okay, with amendments in it, and I didn't want to have to till it with a tiller. So I said, well, what can I do? The only option I've got is pure potting mix. I didn't want to have to go pay $1,000 to fill this bed up, okay? You can get potting mix on sale. That's great, but it takes a lot, and it dries out and it shrinks over time, okay? It shrinks in one season. It'll go down a couple inches. It breaks down. So I said, there's got to be a better way. So what did I do? I raked every leaf in the yard. I raked leaf mold from up under pine trees with pine straw. Guys, I did it. I figured it would kill every plant in this bed. I put bags of paper, cardboard, old logs to boost it up, give it volume, but over time they're shrinking down and adding nutrients, okay? So you have to continually refill these no-till beds. You cannot just let them sit here. I don't care if you're using straight potting mix, if it's all compost, I don't care what it is. I've got one in the back over there, my little radish and okra bed. It's pure potting mix with logs on the bottom. It shrunk down over time. I've got leaves sitting in it right now to boost it up and add more matter. Got manure in it, okay? All we're trying to do, honestly, and the reason I got into this is I wanted free dirt, and I really thought free soil. I thought it would work, and it did work. This garden surpassed that garden side by side this year by far. It was under 2 controlled circumstances. They got the same type of fertilizer. They got the same type of care, same type of plants in both. This garden did better. It was better soil. It's looser. If you're wanting to grow root vegetable crops, anything like that, this is what you want, something loose, okay? I did add perlite, one small sack of perlite in here. I added a thing of peat moss that I had for seed starting mix and 3 sacks of potting mix. That's it in this whole 20 by 30 bed. Soil level's low right now. You can see the boards in the back. I'm boosting it up. I am going to hammer this with paper and brown. When in doubt, add more brown. You can put fertilizer on it for nitrogen if you have to, okay? Add the brown. But we're blessed with the chickens. But mainly the reason I did this was for free soil. Guys, instead of just having the mentality of, well, I can add just, fertilizer and nutrients to my plants by composting, getting the mentality I can build a raised bed this way, okay? By composting. Don't let composting intimidate you. It did intimidate me because I thought, I can't get this right. Everything that I tried it in, it just did not work. It works like this. So I'm going to leave it be a couple of weeks. I'm going to keep adding to it because, guys, this year I am going to start in January planting. I've never done that before. I want a spring garden. This has to get ready quick. Now, here in Alabama, in my zone, we are now in 8A. The USDA changed the hardiness zones this year. We used to be on 7B, 8A on the line. I've still got the paperwork from 4 years ago when we started this. I didn't know which zone to go with. I kind of went back and forth, usually lean towards 7B. I've said that in my videos. Well, now the state of Alabama barely has 7B anywhere, and it's in the very northern parts. Most of us are in 8A or 8B, okay? So that means we've got a longer growing season the way the climate is changing, okay? The weather is changing. We've got longer growing days, okay? I don't remember Thanksgiving where I was still out here Cadillacing. And I've got tomato plants everywhere, volunteers that are still going. And we've already had a frost, a hard frost, okay? So, you know, that's great for growing, but, you know, I'm trying to get as much food as I can. So, again, I said this morning in my video about big news. Guys, we're going to do a raised bed in the front part of the house, okay? Guess what? This old gal ain't buying pot mix. This gal is going to fill it up with leaves. That's how you can do it. I promise you. I promise you. Now, everybody says this may add bugs. This may add disease. I didn't have a lick. I did not have a lick. My husband told me yesterday, I said, I'm going to get up under our water oak. I've been getting acorns from that lately. I've got something else going on with that. And he said, you're not supposed to put a bunch of water oak leaves in that, I don't think. And I said, well, this bed was full of it last year because that's the only leaves I could get on the ground, that and hickory leaves. So the maple leaves were done gone and disintegrated. So that's the main thing here. A lot of things you're told, sometimes you just got to get out here and try. If it, you know, and I risked a whole 20 by 30. I thought, well, if it's bad, we can pull the mess up and restart with potting mix if I have to, but I want to be able to do it free, and I did. Okay, it cost $100 to build this bed, and that was it with the block and the boards. There's nothing to it, and I know it has grown us more than $100 worth of food. So what are we doing? We are actively composting in this bed. I've got eggshells over there, just cracked open from an omelet. That's going to be green, okay, I believe. Anything like that, now they'll say, well, you need to save these and dry these and put them in the oven and finally grind them into powder and sprinkle them around. Guys, stop. When I plant my tomato plants, I put an egg in the hole. I crack it open with my trowel, let it be. Okay, that's calcium. And I thought, well, wait, I don't need to dry all these eggshells. I can just throw them in the garden. They'll be fine. Because that's what I do under my tomato plants. Now, I don't go hog wild with it, but I do throw some eggshells down in here. It worked, okay? It worked. A lot of this is just unnecessary steps that seem very intimidating. It has worked for me. This may not work for you, okay? It's worked for me. My hickory nuts that I've been shelling and picking out, that goes in here. Whatever you do, don't put anything black walnut or black walnut leaves in a raised bed, okay? Don't do that. That has chemicals in it that will keep things from growing, okay? Don't do that, ever. But hickory nut shells are fine. Hickory nut pieces actually are fine, okay? I try to stay away from stuff that's oily, like pasta, bread. I really don't have a lot of food scraps to throw in here because all our food goes to the chickens. My main green is my manure out of these chickens, okay? Just remember, it's hot. It will burn your plants. I don't want to risk that. I don't want you to risk that with your plants. So put it on several months before and let it sit here and wind down. Now, something else, I was petrified when I first started this that all these leaves and paper would just go flying everywhere. It really hasn't. I've had a little bit of a mess, but you see it's pretty windy right now behind me. And leaves are flying everywhere and everything else. It's not blowing out of here. It's kind of down in a hole, so it's kind of protected. Also, in my topsoil bed, I have leaves everywhere. I did that last year. I loaded it with leaves. Had the best year I've ever had last year. The soil is finally getting amended enough to where it's usable. So if you don't have anything but brown, go with brown, okay? If you don't have anything, because fertilizers that you put on plants have nitrogen in them, okay? Easy composting. Leaves on the bed, paper on the bed, food scraps, animal manure, let it sit, okay? Now, people say don't till. We have to till in our topsoil bed. We have to. We have no choice, okay? This topsoil is pure clay, if I could get a handful of it. I mean, it's just clay. See that? We have to till this. There's no there's no way around this. They say it's bad for the microorganisms and all. Well, you know, we just do the best we can. That's what we got. I do like this because I don't have to get a tiller in here. And the main thing is I can plant this and I don't have to lift a tiller. I don't have to wait till my husband gets home to do all this. I can do it on my own. That's one reason I wanted to start this bed. So I filled this bed in for free. I did it on my own. Logs, leaves, paper, food scraps, manure, let it roll, okay? That's what you need. That's the easiest form of composting that there is. Let nature do its work. It doesn't have to be in a bin, a tumbler, a container, a pitchfork, whatever, okay? Last but not least, compost breaks down, okay? It turns into this. That's what it is, okay? It just turns into soil, okay? Guys, it has to have heat. That comes from your green material. That comes from turning it. You got to get all this stuff stirred up in here and working, okay? All these little organisms. A good way to tell if your compost or whatever you've got going on is right. A lot of people will put a thermometer down in it. It needs heat. It puts off heat. Now, a lot of you, if you've ever heard of a hotbed, this is kind of getting into the same thing. A lot of people will cover their raised beds and make it a hotbed to suppress weed growth and keep the organisms alive all winter long, all that. A good way to know if your compost is doing right, if it's a cold morning and you see steam coming off this bed, you're doing good, okay? That means it's got heat to it. That's where it's coming from. It's not all this stuff, oh, that's the garden, blah, blah, blah. No, that's the heat in this bed. It's active, it's alive, and you're just keeping it alive, okay? So this is something to learn, even if you use just straight potting mix in a bed, throw some leaves to it, I promise you it will help. Something else I did not mention, guys, I talked about rotting logs, twigs, and I used a good bit of pine, okay? A lot of people say don't do that. My tomatoes in here Cadillac. You've got to know what plants like what. Soil test that we did yesterday on the YouTube short, acidic versus alkaline, test it with baking soda and vinegar. Go check that out. My soil is perfect, okay? It did not have a reaction with either. Little bit with the vinegar, so it may be a little bit alkaline. That's okay. Guys, I used a lot of twigs, pine cones, if you need to raise it up real quick, roses, azaleas, things like that, love it. Another green thing to use is coffee grounds, spent coffee grounds. As soon as you take your coffee out of the pot, if you brew a pot like I do every morning, I don't use the pods, put them down in here, toss it with the paper filter, okay? Of course, toss it in here, it's great. It's great. Worms love this. And get you some worms now. I've done the DIY worm bin. You don't even have to fill with a worm bin. Just toss them in your bed. Okay, let them do their thing here instead of traveling from one to the next. Worms know how to live in nature. Worms know how to take care of themselves. They'll be all right in this bed. So this is kind of an overview of composting. If you want to start out small with a little tumbler or whatever, it's great. If you want to do it big like this, that's great too. Just make sure it's turned. Make sure it's wet. Make sure you've got green and brown. Make sure you do it in advance enough that it won't harm your plants several months in advance. All right, guys, we'll see you next time on Harmon Homestead.